issue. But Commander-in-Chief of the Allied Armies, in World War One, and I remember a lot of the boys that went away to France and Europe during that war.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, my mother, or our mother, had a cousin by the name of William. Bill Williams was a son of my mother's aunt, Aunt Myrtle Williams, and he was taken, and he passed away in Liverpool, England, with a flu, because the flu was very rampant.
Mm-hmm.
That epidemic in 1918. And another one, my brother-in-law, who later on became a brother-in-law, had a brother. His name was John Lookoff, and he was killed in France during the war. And the Lookoff Post, John H. Lookoff Post in Pequannock Township, that's an American Legion post,
Mm-hmm.
is named for him.
Named after him. Okay.
Yeah. Of course, then things were quiet during the 20s. When I say quiet, as far as any wars are concerned. But in the late 20s, we had the crash. And then, of course...
And what do you remember about that? What was... can you compare it to anything that maybe we've experienced here in the last couple of years, or was it much different?
No comparison. That was much worse. It was much worse. It didn't affect our family that much, or there are people locally in the town, because the factories that we had there, it seemed the type of work that they were doing was part war work.
War related.
And the American Hard Company, rubber company, did a lot of defense work as far as battery cell casings for submarines and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And we, there were people out of work, a lot of them. Things were tough in general, but prices dropped, and labor was very, very cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You could if there was work or employment, 50 cents an hour was the average.
50 cents an hour.
50 cents
Wow.
an hour. In fact, I hired, when I built my house in the late 30s, in 1938, I hired some labor work for 50 cents an hour.
Wow.
And they were happy to get it.
Mm-hmm.
A person who was appointed as poor master,
Mm-hmm.
and that poor master issued the food orders for the people that were in need and needed it. And they, depending on the size of the family, but the order for food might be for anywhere from $3 to $5 for a week.
Wow.
They got another order for heat, perhaps a load of wood for $3.
What do you mean wood? That's how you heated the house?
Firewood, yes.
Firewood.
Or half a ton of coal.
Or the coal.
Half a ton of coal. The rent was paid if the rent was paid to the landlord direct.
When you built your house, did you have electricity and water and sewer?
I had electricity, water. I didn't have sewer. At the time I was building it, they were putting the sewer line through Roosevelt Avenue. I knew that, and I had dug a temporary cesspool
Mm-hmm.
that I used for perhaps a year until the sewer line was completed, and then it was
Okay.
connected to the sewer. Water was, and heat. I had everything in my home, including, which was unusual in those days, of not only the full bath upstairs, but I had the bath a half bath down.
Downstairs. Okay.
And
So we didn't talk about your house, building your house.
The house?
Yeah.
Well, after the grandmother lost the first baby, we moved from Bloomingdale to Butler, back to Butler, in a smaller apartment with only one bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And after living there about 2 years, she became pregnant. And then I had to think of a larger, because of one bedroom. So that's when we went over on Roosevelt Avenue, and we rented it. That was a 3-bedroom house.
Over close to your brother Lou.
Huh?
Was Uncle Lou still? Was he on Roosevelt yet, or no?
Roosevelt Avenue,
Right.
next to Lou.
Okay. Next to Lou.
The landlord was Harold Tunnel. So your dad was born there, and then you was expecting for Bill. And one night I came home house on that basis. And when we went in, there was improvements we knew that needed, the heating systems and things like that. And after I bought it, I replaced that. And then I renovated the house. And I did that on my time off. The day off I had a week, and nights after work and weekends. And that's where the children grew up. And they were in their high school, hadn't graduated yet, when I decided to sell that house because of conditions with the next door neighbor. So I sold the house and bought over on Lake Edenville, and that is I contracted that out and had it built. So that is the where we spent our remaining lives together.
And that Lake Edenwall, that's Genter Street. Genter Street.
And Lake Edenville.
Okay. And what year did you build? You built the house, right?
Had it built.
Had it built.
Gee, I don't know. I think we lived there around 45 years.
45 years. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Now I have sitting next to me my Aunt Ruth and my Aunt Thelma. And let's see, Aunt Ruth, when were you born?
I was born on July 20th, 1911.
1911.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you were also born at the homestead.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the, let's see, you were the third or fourth?
Bill, Bill, and Ethel, and Isabel, and Lou. I was the fifth.
The fifth, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what can you remember about growing up with your brothers and sisters?
Well, one thing I wanted to tell you, first of all, was my father's name was Israel, which is an unusual name.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he was called that, because in those days, school teachers often stayed at the homes of the parent of children. They went from parent to parent and stayed at the homes. And there was a school teacher at that time staying there whose first name was Israel. I don't know what his last name was, but that's why they named my father that. But he was always called Iz by everybody who knew him, never
Right.
Israel.
That was his nickname.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Graduated from Butler High in
You
1928.
1928, okay.
Right. And went on to Patterson State Normal at that time it was, for 2 years.
Okay.
And then after that, I started teaching in Ringwood.
In Ringwood.
It must have been in the early 30s.
Okay.
Early 30s, yeah. That's all I can tell you.
Early 30s, okay.
And then, let's see, I taught in Teaneck. The grades at that time, the elementary grades were the first 6 grades, and then a junior high, and then the high school. And so I taught 5th and 6th grade math.
5th and 6th grade math, okay.
In
Teaneck.
Longfellow School.
Okay.
And the principal I had met, who had formerly been my principal at Butler, was a principal at that time there. Then he moved on up to the high school and became a principal in the high school, and a new principal came in, who was Mr. Dolan, who later became my husband.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
So when did Uncle Jack and you were, he was the principal of the school and you were a math teacher?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then when did you get married? Was
Oh
that
dear, and I
after
just
you
looked
retired?
it up. No,
You were still working.
let me see. No, it was after I retired. Golly, what year was it? I just looked it up yesterday. I had the
77?
Yes, it was 77. You're right.
1977. Okay.
Uh-huh. In August of 1977.
Right.
And when did you retire?
Oh, I retired. When did Mom die?
What year? I don't know.
What year did Mom die? 89, Lou? No,
No, she
No.
died in
90.
72.
Oh, 72?
72.
Well, then sister Isabel was alone.
Okay, so
And I retired and thinking, that was before she died, but thinking that I would come home and help my sister with my mother.
right.
But after she died, then I stayed and lived with her.
And you came back, so you came back
To Butler.
to Butler,
Uh-huh.
and you and Aunt Isabel, if I remember, lived
At the
What-
foot of Keel Avenue
at the
down
foot
there.
of Keel Avenue. That's right, I remember. Okay.
Remember Smith, Eugene Smith's
Right.
family's home?
And Aunt Isabel, did she retire? Because I remember she was working at Nee's Bakery. That's
Right.
what I remember for a
So
long
she
time.
had retired in
Okay.
American Heart. She was a secretary there.
Okay.
And she retired and then felt that she wanted to do something, and she did work then at the bakery.
At the bakery.
Mhm.
Okay.
You should tell them she worked in Newark for a number of years.
Yes, she had worked before coming home to help with my mother in Newark at the insurance company.
Casualty Insurance Company.
Casualty insurance. Okay.
Mhm.
Fireman's insurance.
I worked
Company.
with, well, that's what they carry, but it was a casualty insurance company.
Okay.
I worked with her.
Oh, you did?
I worked in
There.
Newark for quite a few years, but I didn't work in her department.
You
Okay.
drove back and forth.
We
with
drove
her.
back and forth
Uh-huh.
with car and had tough times sometimes in the winter.
So you had car. So let's see.
Isabel had a car.
Isabel had a car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So Aunt Thelma, when were you born?
October the 11th, 1917.
1917.
Right.
And that was
6 years after Ruth.
6 years after Ruth.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Chuck was
And-
your dad.
He was in between.
between.
He's
In
3
between,
years,
right.
almost 4.
8 years after Ruth.
Okay. I didn't ask at the beginning. Let's see. Today, how old? Uncle Lou is the oldest, and he is
97.
97.
Will be in October.
Will be 97.
Will be in October, 97. Grandpa is 90. He just turned 95.
90.
90.
90.
Oh, boy. He just had his 90th birthday.
Right.
And Aunt
I will
Ruth,
be 93 this
93
July.
in July.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll
And
be
Aunt Thelma.
87 in October.
87 in October. Okay. So, what was it like for you growing up in the homestead?
Oh, I was spoiled. I was the youngest in
You
the
were
family.
the youngest in the family. Okay.
I got most everything. After I graduated from high school, I stayed home for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I guess, and helped my mother.
Okay.
And then I got tired of that, and I felt, I wasn't getting any money. And Isabel was working in Newark at the insurance company at that time. And she asked about jobs down there and got
Mhm.
me a job. So I got a job down there as file clerk, and I
Okay.
worked there for quite a while.
And you would
I-
commute up from.
We commuted back and forth by car. And as I said, sometimes it was we get stuck on the hills and everything else.
What do you mean stuck on the hill? Stuck in
Because
traffic?
no, because of the bad weather in the winter.
Oh, the bad
You'd have
weather.
to stop for the lights and you couldn't get started again. That was before we had snow tires or anything.
Okay.
I guess they had chains at that time, but she didn't have them.
Okay.
Then you stayed down.
One year we stayed one winter down. We rented a room, and I think it was on Prospect Street in Newark. And Isabel got so homesick that we
She
wouldn't
didn't
do it
wanna-
again.
Well,
Oh, then we, after working at the insurance company with Isabel, I don't know if Dad was still living at that time, but she decided she wanted to work closer to home. And she got a job at the American Hard Rubber Company. Now, whether Dad got it for her,
Died, and that was why.
I think he was still living. And then after she did, then I went in there and got a job too.
Okay.
And worked in it. So we worked there together. I don't know what year that was, though.
No.
Now we're with Aunt Ruth and Aunt Thelma. And Aunt Ruth has a story she wants to tell us when she was about how old?
About 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay.
And at that time, I was barefooted. It was in the summer months. I was on the front walk, walking out, and all of a sudden there was a snake. They told me afterward it was a copperhead
Wow.
from the meadow in back of the property. And that startled me so that I'll tell you from then on, I have
day.
no use for snakes. Bill killed it. I didn't know what happened, what happened to it. But anyway, that was it.
And you were 3 years old.
About that, I guess. And then the other thing was that I remember these things that stay with you, you know, everything does, was Lou, you and Chet had that bobsled? That you, oh, Bill and you had built it, I guess, had a bobsled.